Welcome everyone to the Gentleman's Hour, and this week I'm joined by a special guest, Mr. Paul Kearney. Thanks for being here, Paul.
My pleasure. Hello, everybody.
Cool. So, Paul and I and my friend Connor have just started doing a gentleman's club book club, and it's been really interesting, some of the conversations that we've been having so far. But I wanted to ask you as well, Paul, like, for you growing up, I think you grew up in Ireland. Like, what was it like, being a boy and growing into a man? It's like, what was that like for you?
Um, it's an interesting question, actually. Yeah, it is mixed. I like a lot of friends, had a lot of fun, and um, it was also quite tough in one way because when you're sensitive or when you're aware, like there's always a lot of things that come up, and you're like, oh, why can't I just be like everybody else? It's like, why do I have all these feelings or thoughts? And it's like, how come I'm aware of this? Blah blah blah. And it turns out that none of it is actually true, and like a lot of it in my early 20s, like there was bouts of depression, and it was like turns out it was just awareness that I was aware of other people's worlds. But it's
Mm.
like yeah, that's why I'm so passionate about getting this information out into the world, because it's like when people have this information and have this energy, it can make such a difference to your whole life. um, and allowing yourself to be you, like ultimately that's the more that you can be you, the happier you become. It's like life becomes a hell of a lot easier.
Yeah. Did you have anyone in particular, like, as a young man, that you sort of looked up to as a male figure, or like role model in your life?
Yeah, when I was in college, I met this amazing guy. He was the university was quite big, like it was like maybe 20,000 students, and he was the chaplain. He was a priest, but he was just this amazing guy. He was like very wise, very kind, super super intelligent, and just a really clued in guy. And I spent quite a lot of time with him actually, and we had yeah, I'm still great, lifelong friends with him. He's been just a great, great guy. And it was, he always looked at things from a very expanded viewpoint, and like similar to Gary Douglas, the founder of Access Consciousness, always asking lots of questions and exploring different concepts. Like he did absolutely amazing things. And he was, yeah, he was definitely somebody who I admired greatly. Yeah, he was, and he was always in your corner, no matter what was going on. He was always there. Yeah.
Hmm. And you spoke a little bit about like growing up as well, kind of like those teenage going into young adulthood years, and being a little bit like awkward and out of place. And like, what are some of the things that, if you could talk to like a young person now, based on what from what was going on for you then, like what would you say to yourself now, if you were, if you could go back to when you were sort of 16 or something like that?
I think a lot of it would just be relax and enjoy the ride. It's like it's going to take you wherever it's going to take you, and it's all going to be okay. It's like at that age, a lot of the time we're trying to figure out, okay, who am I? What do I stand for? What do I not stand for? What do I believe in? And where do I fit in? And it was like, what if you never fit in? What if there's never a space where you have to fit in? What if it's actually you being you all the time? And it was like, I was quite enthusiastic, quite loud, and people were like, oh, you're too much, blah, 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 blah. And it was basically shut yourself down. Like that used to always come up. And it was like, it was, now more so I'm like, no, not, don't shut yourself down, ramp it up, go even further, be more ambitious, take more risks, do more stuff, because the more that you choose, you're going to get awareness from it. And it's like whatever you choose, it's going to be okay, cool, that was really cool, or okay, that wasn't so cool. But it's like, yeah, take more risks, go for it. I think that's one of the things that I by and large I do like. Yeah.
Yeah, and I mean, I like what you said as well about, relaxing a little bit and going on the ride, because I think I remember as well, being young and thinking everything was, really serious. And looking back, it was like some of the funnest and most free sort of times that you have in your life, where you just get to explore and everything's kind of new and adventurous. And I think growing up, like becoming an adult, there's a lot of fun things that you get to do that sort of never happen again because
Yeah.
they're for the first time or whatever. Yeah. So, obviously now it's very different. And like, how would you say your perception of, a gentleman and what it is to be a gentleman has sort of changed? And like, what is it for you now? Yeah, what is it for you now?
Yeah, it's a great question. I'm still exploring it. I'm actually so me and Sol and
Mm,
Connor did a call last week and on the book club, and it is it was so interesting that the topics it brought up, and it's like it's actually what is a gentleman, and I think a lot of a gentleman is he allows whoever he's with, whether it's a man or a woman, to be themselves, and it's like being that space of allowance and just allowing you to be you, and it is a lot of it is interesting point of view. I think it is, which is an interesting point of view, is a tool from Access Consciousness, where everything is just an interesting point of view depending on how you look at it. And yeah, it's actually being that more in the world, and it's very much. So I thought I had like kind of a view of what a gentleman was, and now after last week's call and a couple of things that happened in the last couple of weeks, I'm like, wow, maybe I don't have a clue. Maybe it's completely different, and kind of just exploring that, and it's like what being a gentleman is here. And yeah, it can be funny because sometimes it can be projected at you as well. Oh, well, you're not being a gentleman. And it's like, no, I'm totally being a gentleman. I'm just not allowing myself to be walked all over. So it's kind of it's knowing what a gentleman actually is rather than what it's portrayed to be as well.
yeah. And these conversations are really based on some amazing books by Gary Douglas and Dane here, The Gentleman's Club and Return of the Gentleman. And one of the things that I really love about what they talk about is that like being a gentleman is having that kindness and that caring, and I guess that sensitivity as well that you were talking about, like being aware of what's going on for other people, like being highly aware. And but also that place where you don't have to cut any of that off to be you. And you can still enjoy drinking beers with your mates. You can still enjoy going to the footy or watching TV, or like whatever it is that you like to do as a man. That it's all included, and none of it's actually like we talk about consciousness including everything and judging nothing. And I think for me that was a big like difference in this, in terms of like I'd had so many people in my life that were men, but I would never really get to have a conversation that I felt like really meant anything, if you know what I
Yeah,
mean.
yeah,
And
totally.
the conversations that are in these books, and also the conversations that we're starting to have like on this book club, it's like actually getting to know like what it is to be a man in this world, and not have to hide any part of you, but be willing to be it all. So yeah, it's been a interesting exploration for myself as well. And I think we're just really scratching the surface of what's possible here too.
Yeah, totally. And it's it's for me like with a gentleman, it's never giving yourself up. And it's like it's so often it's so easy to do that where you give yourself up for this reality or sex or whatever it is you think is important that in that 10 seconds. And it's like when you actually acknowledge, wow, all of me, the beauty of me, the joy of me. And it's like thinking back on it, it's actually a fascinating question. Like thinking back on it, like one of the things that came into my life in my early 20s was Tai Chi. And I did lots of Tai Chi and I trained as a teacher. And I remember the first weekend I did it with the guy who I ended up training with, and he was an awesome teacher. Jason Chan was his name. He was a Chinese man, and I remember telling him, "Okay, I've got the option of doing this course or going travel around the world." And he said to me, "Sometimes in life, you only get the chance once." He didn't say he didn't have any preference which one it was. I'm like, it was. I remember that week, and I was like, "Okay, I'm going traveling around the world," and I traveled around the world for a year and a half, had an awesome time. It was absolutely amazing. And it was just a continuous adventure. Like I went to over 20 countries and met so many cool people, but literally it was like every 10 seconds, okay, where am I going now? What am I doing? Everything could change. And it was a real open space. And I came back later and trained as a Tai Chi teacher, which I loved. And because the beauty of the elegance and the flow of the movement, but it allowed you to tap into something that was very deep in you, which was like your being, for want of a better word. But like it's kind of yeah, all of you, just that sense of relaxation, that sense of calm, and that sense of space. Because Dane here, one of the founders of Access Consciousness, is talking a lot about now is the space. And it really, at that stage, it was the only tools I had where it allowed me to tap into that space where you just do it early in the morning and you just felt so spacious, so uplifted, so joyful. And it was like, wow, this is awesome. And when Access came along, then it brought it to the next level again. And it's kind of,
Yeah.
yeah. And I think a gentleman a lot of time provides that space for other people, just allows them to be them, whatever's happening. Yeah.
Yeah, and I like that you talked about, that basically he gave you choice. He didn't tell you you should do this or you should do that. He said, one of these choices is going to create, and which one are you going to choose? And I think that's also something about being a gentleman, is that you also inspire other men to be the gentleman that they are. Like you've talked about a few people in your life that have really left an impact. And I know that you work with quite a few people at the castle in Italy, and you're also a facilitator, and you work with the business of access. Do you have any like stories of people that you would say you've, like, gentlemen that you would say you've seen changed in sort of like the time that you've worked with them or known them? Like, do you have any inspiring sort of stories that stick out?
Yeah, for me, I think it'll probably be Dane here, because it's like there's some of the early classes, maybe like 15 years ago or even more. So I bought the Gentleman series. It was a set of USBs, and it was 12 calls that Gary did, and Dane was on them, and like he was kind of at that stage just getting started in facilitation and asking questions and being involved, but like nowhere at the level he is now, if you know what I mean. Like where he's probably like he's a world authority, I would say, on what he does. And it was so inspiring to see. It was like, wow, he started with all these judgments of himself as well, and he let them all go and saw, okay, this is a lie, this is a lie, this is a lie. It can actually be me. And so often, I think when we start in this journey, like we're here and then we get to here, but we never realize, oh, I was actually here before and now I'm here. And it's actually acknowledging the difference, like how much, for anybody who's listening, how much you've changed in the last year, how much you've changed in the last 6 months, because it's at present, it's a world of change. There is a lot of things changing for people.
Yeah, and you might also be listening and thinking, well, I don't think I can, change this, but like that's one thing that I would say to you as well is, um, with these tools and with these conversations as well, especially as a man, if you don't have someone to talk to about this sort of stuff, or like what's actually going on for you, it's like there's a really different conversation that's available. It's like, we're doing this book club, it's free to join. You can come and play. We'll pop the link in the comments so that you know where to find it. But it's like, what if you could change, even if it was just one point of view that allowed a different possibility to show up in your life? Because it tends to snowball anyway into something completely different. So yeah.
Yeah.
That's a great point. Like even just as well, that thing of what if you could judge yourself less, have
Yeah.
less judgments of yourself. And the men that we're talking about are also, the different men. It's like they're not the men that are sort of like the stereotypical man. It's like they're a little bit different, like Paul was saying, a little bit like highly aware, a little bit sensitive. But you've also got to acknowledge, I think, as well, with that, it's actually a capacity. Like we're told vulnerability is a weakness, but it's actually one of our greatest strengths. So, you might be different and you might think that that's something that you have to hide or that you can't embrace, but actually embracing that might be one of the greatest gifts that you have to offer the world.
Yeah,
So,
totally. And it's also a lot of the time you may be doing it already, because like if you're following what's light and what's joyful, it's kind of like continuing to go with that energy, because as humanoid males in particular, we judge ourselves for being wrong. We're wrong for everything. So it's like we make ourselves wrong. If the tree falls over, we're wrong. If the tree doesn't fall over, we're wrong. If there's no firewood, we're wrong. It's like in this permanent state of wrongness. And it's actually, it was interesting on the call the other night when me and you and Connor were talking about that. For a lot of women, they were like, wow, we never got that. It was like, we never got how much men perceive that they're wrong. And it's like always running from this sense of wrongness, rather than saying, okay, who the hell does this belong to? Is any of this mine? And acknowledge, okay, it's not mine, and what else is possible? And it's like, what life do you desire to have, and what difference do you want to make in the world? That would be my question to people, because the more that you can be a gentleman, the more you can actually be a gentleman to yourself, because you're being kind to you.
I love that. I think, yeah, I think that might be a great place to leave people with those questions. And thank you so much, Paul, for coming on and sharing a bit about what it is to be a gentleman for you. And yeah, look, if you want to come and play on the book club, we've only done the first call, so there's still plenty of spaces to join. And yeah, we'll include a link. And thanks again, my friend. Pleasure to have you
My
on here.
pleasure.
And
You
yeah.
too.
All right. Thanks, guys. Bye for now.
Thank you. Bye bye.